Hello and welcome. My name's Liam. I'm the Senior Communications Manager at PRS Foundation. Thank you for joining us for this PPL Momentum Accelerator Sbardun session. I'm going to introduce my colleague Becky, who is the Senior Programs and Grants Manager at PRS Foundation. And she'll be running through this session. What we're going to do is encourage people to ask questions about applying, or if you've started the application already, any things that have come up that you want to talk about that are troubling you. And if you could write them in the chat box, then I will read them out and then Becky will do the answering, if that's okay. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass you over to Becky.
Thanks, Liam. Here we go. Already a Zoom fail. Can't get off my my mute. The other thing to mention, if you do want to ask a question in Welsh, we do have a translator who can translate that for us. So unfortunately, I don't speak Welsh, but we are trying our best to do the bilingual aspect, so you can ask the question in Welsh yourself, so we will get that translated. Yeah, as Liam mentions, I'm the Senior Grants and Programs Manager. If you don't know anything about PRS Foundation, we're the leading funder of new music and talent development in the UK, so we support all genres, all backgrounds, all career levels of music creators to help realise their potential. And just a bit of blurb, since 2000, we've given out more than £41 million in impactful and timely grants to over 8,100 new music initiatives, either to music creators directly or to organisations who support those music creators. But as Liam mentioned, this particular Ask Me Anything session is about PPL Momentum Sbardun Accelerator. We have about an hour to answer your questions. The deadline for the final round of this Momentum year, which runs April to March, by the way, so don't get panicked that it's not the calendar year, is Monday, the 6th of February at 6 p.m. prompt. So past 6 p.m, that's the cutoff. So we won't be able to accept any after that point. And just a bit of background on Accelerator. It's a targeted scheme to support the development of outstanding artists and bands who are writing their own music, and also future industry professionals outside of London who face additional barriers to reaching their crucial career tipping points based on their location. So we recognise that, you know, you have a lot of networks in London, you have more infrastructure in London that you may not have in your nation or region. For music creators, we can support to £5,000, and for industry professionals, it's up to £2,000 with a mix of mentoring and other support. So we're going to support around 7 people this financial year, so April to March. So in the next round, we'll choose 4 creators and 1 industry professional in this next round. So a total of 2 across the whole year. Liam, do we have questions coming in?
No, not quite yet. So it might be worth just giving a kind of overview of the application form, if that's okay, and what can be funded.
Sure, yeah. So how you apply, we use a grant management system, which is all online, called FlexiGrant. You can go on our website and find a link to FlexiGrant there. You will find a list of all available and open programs within the applications section. So if you scroll down, if you've already applied to us, if you scroll down further, you will see all the funds that are open. Any fund that is open at that point will be listed there. If it is not open, it will not be listed there. So for future, just in general, if you are worried as to why the fund is not listed, that is because it is not open yet. If you go onto our deadlines page of our website, it will show when that is due to be open and when it's due to close. So you can look there. The fund, I might just give you a brief rundown of what the fund is particularly for and the 2 different areas. So as I mentioned, it is for creators, but also for industry professionals. So for creators, you need to be creating your own original music. So you need to be writing or performing it. For this, obviously, particularly, you need to be based in Wales. You need to have been profiled or featured in regional or national press and had media coverage and blogs as your artist or band. Have you played shows or been asked to play shows across your region, nation? And do you have a strong fan base within within Wales? And are you making your first steps to gain national interest, or are you already gaining some national attention? We will prioritise those who haven't been funded by the foundation in the last 12 months. So if you have been funded through either our open fund for music creators or Women Make Music, versus somebody who hasn't in the last 12 months, we will prioritise those who haven't been funded by us in that last 12 months. And then for industry professionals, we are looking to see that you are establishing yourself in Wales as an industry professional, and you have a strong commitment to supporting music creator talent in Wales. You will have a good or a growing track record, and you are ready to develop your skills and increase the impact that your work will have on the scene in Wales. You would have been working in or around music for more than 18 months, but less than 10 years. So this isn't for somebody who is, quite far in their career. But we do understand that, career paths can take different tracks and different ways and paths. So we're not that prescriptive in our criteria there, but you should show strong potential and be excited to forge a full-time career in music. And you will also be keen and open to be involved in the network of industry professionals and others within the wider PRS Foundation network, both regionally and nationally. In terms of what you can apply for, so it is your kind of general funding things that you can apply for, which is, as it is with a lot of funders, which is recording release. This is for creators, obviously. Recording release, live performance or touring. This is all domestic though, so this cannot be for any sort of international activity. High quality and innovative broadcast or pre-recorded online content. Essentially, that is where you need that content to create, but we will only fund marketing and PR. We include that as marketing and PR as long as we are funding part of the creation or performance. Creation of new music, time to create, fees for creative collaborators, some education and training. So that's not to fund your degree. That's kind of where maybe, for example, you need to learn more about Ableton, for example, those kinds of courses. Commissioning and equipment up to 20% maximum. That's more for those who are working in the behind the scenes. So whether you're a producer or behind the scenes songwriter, rather than you buying a guitar, that's not the kind of thing that we're looking at, or a combination of the above. And then for industry professionals, essentially, it can be things around mentoring, industry advice, kind of micro grants to you expanding your network by going to different UK-based showcases, for example, Great Escape, Focus Wales, Wide Days, Liverpool Sound City. And it's about forging you as an industry professional, so that money shouldn't be if you're a manager, for example, and you're working with an artist in Wales, that money should not be going towards that artist. It should be going towards your development.
Great. Thanks, Becky. So the questions are flooding in now, so I think we should probably make a start. So the first question from Dora is, are there any restrictions? So I'm guessing that's to applying.
So yes, I think it depends on the context of restrictions. As I've mentioned a few, you can't, as if you're a artist, you can't just come in for marketing and PR. We won't support just marketing and PR. It has to involve an element of creation or performance. So that could be you have some demos and you want to release an EP, and you also want to market that EP. So we can contribute to all of that. Whereas if you've already recorded the EP and you've had it mixed and mastered and you just want to do the campaign, we can't just fund that. Again, on the industry professional side, as I said, it's around you as an individual, developing your career, your profession within and helping the infrastructure within Wales. The other things which you should bear in mind are you need to be based in Wales for this, particularly for the Welsh support. The other Accelerator regions I mentioned were Yorkshire and Liverpool City region. The same goes for that. You either need to be a member of PRS or in a position to join. So what that means is you might not be a member right now, but you could be a member. So you can't be a member of an alternative collection society. Restrictions again around, say you are doing a higher education course, you're doing a degree in music, we can't fund activity which is related to that, but we could, as I mentioned, if you're a behind the scenes producer, songwriter, or you're working specifically in certain electronic music genres, are there Ableton courses or those kinds of things that you can apply for those. The other restrictions are that we won't fund 100% of your award. We expect you to contribute 10%. So on a £5,000, award, it would be 10% of that. That can be actual money that you have, or it could be, projected money. So if it's for a tour, you might know that you're going to get 50 quid per show, and that counts as income towards the project. So I wouldn't be really concerned if you don't have hard cash monies. That does help, obviously, because it shows you're investing in your career. The other restriction I would say is that you are not just starting in your career. You're not just putting out, you've just started, basically. This fund isn't for that. This fund is for where you are making kind of waves, as it were, metaphorically, in Wales, through your creative project, through your artistry, and you are taking it to that next level. So it's not if you're just starting out.
That leads on to a next question, actually, quite neatly. Does the activity I'm looking to fund have to take place in Wales, e.g. if I'm looking to hire a studio?
No. Well, it has to take place in the UK, can't take place internationally. One other restriction that I've just remembered is most funders will not fund something called retrospective activity. So what that means is between the deadline date and the time it takes for us to make a decision, which we call the assessment period, we cannot fund anything until we've delivered a decision to you. So, for example, say you are looking to go on tour and you apply to the deadline on Monday and your tour takes place in 2 weeks. We're not going to fund that because you won't get a decision until after that point. And it's called retrospective funding because it's happened before our decision. So any activity that you plan has to happen after our decision date, which is around normally about 8 to 10 weeks, but it should normally say on the website, and on the form. But I would always give yourself between 8 and 12 weeks, longer if possible. I'll give yourself 12 weeks, because at least then you can be sure that you would have had a decision and your activity can then start.
Great. So next question, which I think you've already touched on, is from Joanna, which is, are development bursaries eligible under the fund? What
do you mean by a development bursary? That needs to be...
Yeah, I think if you can explain that a bit more, Joanna. I would imagine it's kind of... I tell you what, I'll let Joanna explain rather than me try and guess what you're trying to say, and then we'll come back to that. Time to create, is there a guideline for how much you should contribute towards your own time to create?
It's just overall, right? So we expect you to contribute 10% overall to the whole project budget. So, we could fund the entirety of the time to create, and the other 10% is going towards travel, which you're covering, right? So that actually doesn't matter. It's just about how much money do you need to have that space to create. So it might be that you work part-time or full-time in another profession, or even linked with music, if we're talking about creators here, and you need to take annual leave to do that. You can give yourself a bit of a top up in terms of giving yourself some money for the time to create. So, and it's a good habit to get into. In certain genres, they are very hot on that, and others not so much. It's always kind of good practice for you to be thinking of it in that way, like your time is valuable. You have value, your creative time has value. So I would always recommend that you put some money towards that time, would be my advice. But a lot of people don't. So it's completely up to you. Yeah,
I think that's really good to flag, actually, because there are quite a few genres that really do. Okay, yep, Jake's message gone. Rebecca, as someone who has received funding from the Open Fund, is this the next step up for funding, or does Momentum Fund look at supporting artists who have not received funding yet?
So Open Fund for Music Creators is all levels, so all career levels. So actually, that's a bit of it kind of, yeah, it depends when you apply to the Open Fund and where you were in your career. But what I will say is that Open Fund does support you to make incremental positive career trajectory steps and projects. But for PPL Momentum Accelerator, it is, well, the word is, it's kind of in the title, it's going to accelerate you beyond kind of the regional to the national. And then PPL Momentum Fund, which is our next steps fund, which is up to £15,000, is about you breaking the UK nationally. So it's kind of those stepping stone moments. So if you've already had Open Fund for Music Creators, that's absolutely fine. You would still be eligible for this support to come in if you are hitting those criteria, which means that you are breaking within Wales and need to take it to that next step.
That's a great segue to the next question, which is table 1344. Thanks both for the session. Appreciate this fund is being set aside for Wales, but why is it only 5k for Wales when you can apply for 15k in England? Which is actually a good question to clear up, because that's not actually the case, is it, Becky?
No. So PPL, so there's two, which might be slightly confusing, I can understand. There's PPL Momentum Sbardun Accelerator, which is up to £5,000 in Wales for those particular criteria that I mentioned previously. Then we have PPL Momentum Fund, which is up to 15,000, which is all across the UK. We work with Creative Wales actually on PPL Momentum. So actually, it isn't England only.
Exactly, yeah. So yes, UK wide, and yes,
Yeah.
if you're at that level, don't feel like it's not for you.
Correct.
Okay, so I've skipped too far there. Oh, blimey, the questions are really coming in. Okay, so can you have two applications open at the same time, e.g. PPL Momentum and the Open Fund?
You can, but it kind of makes us think you don't really know what you need funding for and whether you're at the right level for each. It's a bit of it's similar when you send your track to lots of different PR companies in the hope that it will stick, or different magazines or radio stations in the hope that someone will pick it. You really do need to look at the criteria, see what you need right now, and which fund will be the most appropriate for you. I would say that if you came into PPL Momentum, the big momentum, as I'm going to call it now, and are successful, you are not eligible for any other support from us. We wouldn't expect you to need additional funding. This is the type of funding that is meant to kind of send you on your way, and we're going to wave you a great kind of, well done, smash it. The only other funding you can come into us for is international at that point, which is showcase funding. So I always advise people, if you don't really need, and it's not really crucial, like, you might go on this tour with somebody, but it will be great, but there might be another tour or an album in the pipeline that really will should make you shoot up to the stars. You might want to wait for that, right, and go through our other funding options. We won't reject it, but it just doesn't. And also the values of money you can come in for are different. So you just really need to think about, what's the project? What do you want to do? How will it help you get to that next level? And how much money is required for that? And do you fit the criteria? I just don't recommend it. You're better off really focusing on one or the other, because if you do the same application, it just won't hit the same.
Cool. Another kind of variation on funding, having funding before. So Angarad says, I was awarded open funds at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. Would I be eligible to apply for this fund this year?
You are eligible. It just means what we mean by prioritising of applicants who have not had funding from us for the last 12 months. It just means that if you get to panel, so our assessment process is all the applications come in. Your application is scored 1 on the quality of the music within your genre, and 2, the plan. So how realistic is the plan? Have you convinced us now is the right time for this funding, what it will mean for you, that your budget makes sense? We assess it. We have expert advisors who assess it. We pool those scores. The highest scoring go to a panel. So it's kind of 2 stages internally, not externally. And then we have another 4 independent expert advisors who sit and discuss those highest scoring ones. And if you are in a scenario where, for example, they're really struggling to choose between the two applications because each is incredible, our priority, and one has been selected in the last 12 months and had awarded funding, and the other one hasn't, our priority is for the person who hasn't had that funding. So, and I know that's quite tricky, but it's also enables us to support as many people as possible in a fair way. So I wouldn't say, and this isn't to discourage people, I just think you might have an incredible application. It just might be that somebody else is in our priority in that respect.
Cool. A slightly deeper question on the criteria from Alex. They were wondering if we could elaborate on the funding regarding team growth, so agent, manager, label, etc., and how that has worked in past applications.
So for Accelerator, you don't need a team. It's just that you are maybe working informally with people. So I suppose what we would be looking for is that you are, promoters in the southeast. You're playing in Le Pub, you're playing in club, you might be playing other areas, and those would be kind of informal working relationships. You might be kind of thinking, I think I need a manager now to kind of help me kind of, really concentrate on the creative, and then they can deal with business aspects. And so it would be more kind of I have interest from these things, and getting this funding means I'm more attractive to a manager or a label or a publisher or an agent or festivals or what have you, which means you are expanding your team, which means you are going to be bringing more people on, because generally the further and more, not always, this isn't the case, everybody's artistic career is very different. So I want to caveat that it's not a blanket one size fits all, and we're aware of that. But generally, the further and more successful you are in your career, or the more shows you're doing, or the more output you're giving, and if you go full time, you need to understand the business, but equally you need to be concentrating on your creative, how is that, and working with a team to help you deliver that vision, of that creative vision of you as an artist. So that does that answer it? Sorry, it was a bit waffly, but I what it means is that you are going to be bringing on more team members to you, to your career, to then move yourself to the next level.
Yeah, and I think, as you said before, with PPL Momentum or Big Momentum in this chat, you would need a lot of those things in place, like a bit of a team already there, to kind of illustrate that you're ready for the next level.
Yeah. And then just around PPL Momentum, we will likely do some other sessions around Big Momentum once it opens. It's not open as yet this year. So in this chat, while I appreciate some people might want to deep dive further into PPL Momentum, can I ask that we revisit that at another point, because this is specifically for Accelerator?
And we definitely will. We definitely will.
Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah.
So a question from Jake, this more on the industry professional side.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been working as an industry professional for over 1.5 years,
mm-hmm.
working with producers in the area, bands and artists through uni. Would they be eligible for funding?
Yes, but is it through your course that you're doing that? If it's on the side, that's fine. You can be in uni, that's fine. I think it's about the impact that you're having on the infrastructure, and that you're championing the scene. So I'm not sure what you're doing in the scene. It sounds like are you giving advice? I couldn't quite tell from the question, but it's really digging down into kind of what are you doing in the scene to help develop it, and therefore what support do you need to help grow you? So it might be that you need to, for example, if you're working with producers, is it that you need to speak to, we might get you a mentor who is a producer manager, right? Or if you're looking to be a studio, you're working in a studio and you want to ultimately kind of run a studio, well, we would try and find you a mentor who does that. So it just really does depend exactly where you're kind of working and where you're planning on going. So it'd be in the application, I would make it very clear as to the areas you are hoping to grow into and what you're doing now, rather than a kind of general, I just want to work in music, because being specific is always much better than being kind of top level and overarching.
Yeah, I think there's also the point about when you do an application form, it kind of helps you focus actually on what you are doing and where you want to go, and as well as making it sometimes clearer that maybe this isn't the right fund for you, or it definitely is the right fund for you. So it's a good process to do, even if necessarily the end game isn't to finish the application to apply. A question from Wig, which is more about the timing of the fund. So is this available yearly? As a musician with a relatively new lineup, would this opportunity be available once I have a fan base, following, actively gigging, touring?
So this is the pilot year that we've done with the Arts Council of Wales. I can't remember if I mentioned it at the top of this, but we work in partnership with PPL, Arts Council of Wales, and Spotify on this particular programme. And I would suggest, you wait. It might actually be that you are more suited to our open fund for music creators first, or Women Make Music, depending on the lineup of your band, or with like your collective band. But I would wait, because for this particular fund, you do need to already be having that interest. You need to be gigging definitely regionally, like even kind of nationally to a degree, or getting offers, or considering that, or having those conversations. Open fund, for example, you might, for music creators, you may, you're kind of starting out, you've got some demos and stuff, people are interested, you've kind of played a few shows, but we don't kind of do things from year zero. If you see when I point dots, you have to have kind of been creating and working on that particular artistic project for at least 18 months. That is our general criteria. Just because you're always evolving, but I think those first 18 months just shows a commitment to that actual project, rather than flitting between lots of different ones.
Great. I've got a question. It's quite a specific one, but I think it might be good, bearing in mind we've come out of COVID and I've seen this being used before. If I were to apply to make a high quality live performance video to using booking shows, would that count as marketing?
I think at this point, probably yes. In the pandemic, there was not actually an opportunity to perform live. My question would be kind of, how would that help you get live bookings without you actually doing the live stuff anyway and invite? I understand what you mean, but maybe what I would maybe suggest is that, are you doing a tour and will you record one of those to make it a high quality performance that you can then share? So it's a double whammy rather than it just being the recording of a high quality performance. So I think, yes, I can see the value in it, but it is, at this point, it's more marketing than it is performance in that respect.
Cool. We've got a geography question here. I live in Cardiff, but would like to record my London-based band's second CD in a London studio, but edited and mixed in Wales, as I did for the first one. Sorry, I missed that comma. Would they then qualify?
Well, if you are the lead in the band and you are the music creator, then yes. It's a bit tricky, but I think given that if you're based in Wales, you're one of the creators, then that should be fine. And you can record outside of Wales. I think the thing is part of the reason for this funding is to enable people to stay in Wales and have successful careers in Wales and be able, and then break nationally. It is about you not having to go to London. Like, I can completely understand why you would want to go to London if there's a certain producer, certain studio. But a lot of Accelerator is about infrastructure within Wales. it's not a criteria that we would say, oh no, well, we're not going to fund that, but it could be. And they, you know, I can't tell you what advisors are going to say on the day, but they may feel that actually they would rather support something that is going to stimulate the infrastructure within Wales. But if you can make a case for the reason why you're going to London, and you're going to say, well, obviously, you know, we're going to mix and master it in Wales, blah, 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 that's fine. It's not a huge issue, but I can't say that the panel may not discuss that for whatever and come to whatever conclusion they come to based on kind of what the fund is for. Sorry, yeah. That's quite a funder answer, but unfortunately that it is all in the discussion in those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of, there's other projects involved from other applicants and stuff, so it's kind of in the rounds, where the money's best placed. So yeah. Okay, so a question from Otto: if you're a producer and artist that signed and had regional and national radio, and you've got an album to soon come out and a team around you, is this the fund applicable to them?
I mean, it might be that you are more suited to big momentum. I think it does depend on your genre, kind of all these things. Again, like I said, I mentioned earlier, you know, every artist's career is unique. It's very dependent on your genre, where you're based, you know, what the team around you, you know, for example, for some artists, you know, for a death metal band, it might be that they're packing out, you know, their capacity of show will be 1,000, and that will be the peak. Whereas if you're, you know, a huge pop act, it's going to be, you know, your bigger venue. So it really does, and your streaming numbers and all of those kinds of things, and all those art, you know, audience things, like some audiences will listen via Spotify, some won't, some will buy merch, some won't. Like there's a whole, you know, as you, I would imagine, you know, or maybe you don't know, that there's so many elements to it and it's so individual. I would say I would check it out. The one thing I just want to go back on, which I didn't refer to, which I didn't earlier, the other caveat is that you cannot be signed by a major publisher or a major record label. So if you are, I'm sorry, we can't support you. We only support those on indies or who are not signed. But if I was you, I would take a look at the criteria for this Accelerator and for Big Momentum and see which one you think you fit into. It sounds like if you've got quite a lot of team, you've got a lot of traction, it might be that is the right time. The other thing I would say is, depending on what you're coming in for, again, is this next project, is this next album going to be something that's could make you do this, or do you think it's more of something that is, there's more to come, right? There's more, I'm sure there's always more kind of fuel in the tank, but is it that, you know, album, I don't know what album this is, 1, 2 or 3 or whatever, is it that album 2 is the thing that's going to make you go whoosh? So for example, a big PPL Momentum example was Nia Wynn. She came into PPL Momentum for her second support with Paul Weller, not her first. So, and actually that did really great things for her. So it's not always the first thing that might be the thing that really catapults you up. And that's just a very tricky balance. And I'm sure your team can advise you on what they think would be the best option, because that is also why you should have a team if you're at a certain level.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like great advice. Question from Tom: is it suitable for buying equipment for gigs around Wales?
No, we're not. We wouldn't, you know, things like amps and guitars. No, it's more, when I'm talking about equipment, I'm talking about those who, again, it's things like if you're a producer or a songwriter, it might be that you need certain equipment, and it's only up to 20% anyway. We don't enable car or van purchase. It's all very clear on the website. You know, building a studio, for example, we won't support. So if it is that you are a producer and it's that kind of, or you're an electronic musician, like those are things that we could consider. But if it's like your guitars, your drums, your breakables, all of that, we won't support that, I'm afraid.
Cool. So one from Wig. I'm doing a degree in music production at the moment in the Atrium, also based in Wales. Yeah. Is the funding just for bands, music creators, or even games composers?
It's for any music creator. So if you are creating a new piece of music, which could be registered in PRS as a new work, the Performing Rights Society, then you would be eligible to apply. Whether you are a film and media composer, whether you're a games it comes from games composition, whether you're a band, whether you're a producer behind the scenes, whether you're a songwriter behind the scenes, writing for other people, whether you're a singer-songwriter, whether you're a 12-piece jazz band, who's writing your own original music and, commercially kind of vibes, all eligible for support.
Great. So a touring question here. If you apply for tour support, does the tour need to be booked at the time of the application? So this person has a booking agent, they've said, and so they will be touring, but would the tour have to have been booked by the time they apply?
No, I mean, it does strengthen that if you have like strong kind of holds kind of thing, but it doesn't have to be. It always kind of helps if it's kind of like, oh, this is, or for example, it might be that they've confirmed that they're happy for it to happen on this day and we're holding it. But until we can confirm, like we can make the money work, then we haven't like 100% committed. So it always helps if it's kind of more than just I might play, I don't know, I might be playing club and I might be playing somewhere in Manchester and I might be playing like somewhere in Leeds and I might be playing in Lexington, whatever, like less wishy-washy, they're great ideas. It's good to know that you've actually thought about it, rather than just plucking things out of the air. So, and I would think of the application as like a bit of a business plan, like a project plan. It really should be helping you. And realistically, this is hopefully an income generating, sustainable career path for you. And therefore it's a business. So you need to, and I'm sorry if I don't want to sound patronizing, but like it is a business and you have to think of it in that way. So, planning is really helpful for you. And so as Liam mentioned earlier, like getting it down on paper, quote unquote, you can kind of plan your way through. So it's fine if it's not confirmed. Advisors tend to look more favorably if it is, but it really isn't the end of the world.
A question from Rebecca, who might have missed your answer to this earlier. Would it still be worth applying if you'd received funding from the Open Fund last year?
I did mention it earlier. Basically, you can, that's fine. It just might be that it gets down to a one-to-one situation where both an application between yourself and somebody else is of equal kind of stature in the conversation on a panel, and you have had support in the last 12 months and the other person hasn't, it's likely that we will prioritise the other person as per the guidance to make it fair for people.
Cool. Question from Howling Bee. So if my album is recorded, mixed, mastered and just released or self-funded, can I apply to develop my live performance to be able to get it on the road in the UK?
Yes.
Excellent. Can the funding be used to promote themselves on social media, etc.? What about producing a physical product like vinyl?
So within the context of a campaign, yes, but we also, as I mentioned earlier, that counts as marketing, PR, merch, anything socials based, then, you need to be supporting. We also need to be contributing either towards the creation and or performance of that music. So if it is a tour, we need to be contributing to kind of, travel costs, your costs of your, musicians, PDs, accommodation, and also your socials. In terms of vinyl, I think that's fine as long as it makes sense, but I wouldn't be coming in for like huge swathes of it. Like it's really expensive and it's very time consuming, as I'm sure people on this webinar are aware. So what is the value of that to your career at this point in your career? Is it something you're making a point of as an artist doing that? Or is it just something that's a nice to have? And what difference really will that vinyl make? Because if it isn't going to make that much of a difference, particularly, I probably wouldn't ask for it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. there's a lot of demand for vinyl at the moment as well, isn't there? So the timing is quite difficult to gauge.
Yeah.
So Joanna's come back with clarity on her question before about
Brilliant.
composer bursary. Sorry, this is quite far down as not questions came in the interim. If we are an organisation running an artist development programme and would like to give an emerging artist a bursary for them to use on recording studio hire, would we be eligible?
No, because this is for individual music creators and industry professionals only. It's not for organisations. If you are looking for organisational support, you should look at our open fund for organisations. However, we don't tend to we don't tend to support organisations to give out bursaries, because that's kind of what we already do through grants. So I would suggest you drop us a line at info@prsfoundation.com with a bit more information, and we can share further guidance with you. But yeah, for this particular fund, it's not for organisations, it's for individual music creators or individual industry professionals.
And I think in the interim, Joanna, you could obviously signpost the music creators you're working with to this fund as well, if it's applicable to their current situation.
Very good point, Liam.
Yes. Question from Alex. How does support for touring work? Is this to cover logistical and hire costs, etc.? Is this specifically for musician fees? How has this worked for previous artists, e.g. Ezra Collective? Oh, good example. Yeah.
That's Ezra Collective or PPL Momentum, I would imagine.
They were,
Accelerator, so that's slightly different. It can be any and all of those things. So, for example, you may have a simple tour, and it's that you want to increase your capacity of venues. So it might be that you want to pay, you have session musicians, pay rehearsal time, session musician fees, travel, accommodation, PDs, marketing, PR. You know, do you need to get a particular like backdrop or something for the venues? Do you need a sound engineer? Do you need, you know, all of those things are eligible. Or it might be that you're a bit kind of avant-garde and you kind of want to get some kind of cool lighting thing happening. You can also apply for that, as long as it makes sense in terms of who you are as a creator and what it will mean for your career. So it again, I'm really sorry for the funder thing, but it is true. Everyone is an individual. So what is it that particularly for you as a creator you're looking to achieve through your live performance? And it might be, you know, some people might want to run before they can walk, for example. You know, oh yeah, I want all the big flashing. Like if it's not part of your kind of thing, I wouldn't try and push too far, particularly right now. If it is expanding the capacities of the venues you want to work in, then I would suggest that. And you can also get support. You know, it might be that it's not just going to different venues and promoters. It might be that there's some festival opportunities, and you might need a bit of support in terms of getting to those festivals. Like that's also fine. So yeah, it pretty much anything that is related to tour is other than kind of buying a van and a car, and kind of buying amps and guitars, and I know might be like, I want a Fender Rhodes. Sorry, I'm not gonna help you buy that. That's just not. I mean, we'd all love one, but it's just this, yeah. But that's not, unfortunately, what we can support.
Great. Question from Stephen. I'm looking to record my first album in London with a film composer who orchestrated The Hobbit. He has written a new piano music for me. I'm from Yorkshire, but would this fund be eligible?
So they're based in Wales, or they're from Yorkshire?
It looks like, I would say they're from Yorkshire. So also it sounds like you're the musician, not the music creator.
Yeah. So if they have written the music, they are the music creator, and therefore we would be supporting the person who created the music, not the musician. So our funding is to support those who are creating new and original music. If you've worked together with this composer on the music and it's co-credited, right, that's fine. But if this composer's written all the music for you and you are going to record it for an album and you're performing it, that's not eligible for our support, I'm afraid. And if you're not based in Wales, then for basically, unless you're based in Wales, Yorkshire, or Liverpool City region, you are not eligible for support for this fund. But if you are, and you are creating your own original music yourself, or in conjunction with others, then yeah, eligible for support if that's the case.
Yeah, and there's other funding opportunities available which might work here, but also people like Help Musicians and other places as well.
Yeah.
If you've already broken through to national radio, BBC Radio 1 and 2, and you're a Wales-based artist which has just finished debut album from Abbey Road, should they apply for this grant or the £15,000 one?
Again, as I mentioned earlier, what do you want to do with the money? How much money do you need? If you've just done your debut, what's this next project for? Is it for album 2? And what does that mean, right? Who are you trying to target? Where are you trying to go in your career? Are you trying to, like, are you releasing yourself? Do you have management? Do you have a label? Do you have a publisher? Like, what are the things that you want to do in your career to take yourself to the next step? It might appear that you might be a bit too far along for Accelerator if you are already in that position, but sometimes the whole point of Accelerator is that it enables you to build that momentum to the point that you could then come into PPL momentum, big momentum. So it might be that you would have to evidence within your genre that you are at that crucial career tipping point, and this particular activity project, recording another album, going on to whatever that is the thing that's going to make you again shoot for the stars and not need to come back in for support. It's going to send you on your way.
Yeah, Abbey Road, very cool.
Very cool.
Another question about having multiple applying to multiple funds at the foundation. So I have 2 funds open at the same time for specific elements of my campaign. So PPL Momentum for studio hire, an open fund for autumn tour. Does this impede my chance of getting one or the other?
Pick one, because honestly, like, if you get big momentum, you cannot have open fund for music creators because you can't go back. If you think of our funding like a pyramid, it's not a pyramid scheme, by the way, a pyramid, and at the more emerging, kind of starting off level, there's smaller grants to help you kind of build up your careers, build up that kind of interest, start growing audiences, get more catalogue of works, get better quality recordings, get, people on board. Then you're going up and up. So if you think the slight difference is the open fund for music creators is for all levels. Like, you can be at any point in your career to come in for that support. But once you get to that next level stage, so if you think of open fund and we make music running, I guess, along the side, then you have PPL Momentum Sbardun Accelerator in the middle here, then you have PPL Momentum at the top. You cannot go back down the rungs. You can't get, and what is the most important to you right now? Like, what is the thing that is really going to help you take that big leap in your career? And I also don't know how much you're coming in for in PPL Momentum, big momentum, but if it's around 5k, I would look at open fund for music creators, because really, like, what is the impact that 5k is going to have? You'd be better off coming in for 5k, and even if you were coming in for 6k, I just think it's a missed opportunity to get more support from us in the long term. So yeah, what is the thing that's really going to develop your career at this point? And do you think that this album that you're going to come in for, or studio hire, that for big momentum, is really the thing that's going to do that? Or is it that you just need to build some more with the touring, and then that, or you could, I wouldn't recommend it, if I'm honest. You wouldn't get both. 100% you won't get both.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've said things like that before in other webinars as well, and yeah, that's generally the case. Next question. We want to promote a small Welsh town with no music scene currently. We'd like to create regular events throughout the town and a small festival. Would this fund apply? Does it does it have to be not for profit?
This fund isn't the right fund for that. This fund is about music creator development as an individual creator or industry professional, about who you are as an industry professional. So it might be that you as an individual could come in and say, well, I guess even if it's not having a scene at the moment, how are you kind of connecting the town that you're working in with other parts of Wales and developing the infrastructure, right? But you can't come to us to kind of set up those festivals or those events under Accelerator. You could come to Open Fund for organisations, but you do need to be running for at least 18 months, and you do need to prove a track record of music creator development. You would need to explain why this is a unique opportunity. I mean, I'm guessing because there is nothing like it, and how you would, how it would be successful. Yes, it needs to be So what we mean by not for profit. So anytime you apply for funding, we expect that before you're applying for it, you will be at a loss, essentially. So what you're asking us to do is top up the gap. That's not to say that you couldn't make money once the event happens, once the tour happens, once the record comes out. That's perfectly fine, and as it should be. And we would hope that you would make money. But when you're applying at this point in time, you're like, oh God, I don't think I can make this work. Like, I really want to work with this producer, and I know it's going to do so much for me, but it's like £3,000 out of my budget, and I can cover the other bits, and I can get all that worked out. But this is a real sticking point, and you've already negotiated with the producer, and that's the most they can come down to. That's when you come to us for support for that. Or it's, I want to do a next level producer, like, if I've got, I can do it with so and so producer, and they're great, and I've worked with them before, but my sound isn't going to be where I want it to be, right? So is it getting the money to do something next level for you? So it's fine if you make a profit overall. And for organizations, you can be limited by guarantee, but we want to make sure that the project itself is not for profit. So it's not kind of lining your pockets. It's like, some festivals might come in and they want to book certain artists, but they know that the audiences aren't really aware of them. So therefore, that means they'll be less likely to buy tickets. So therefore, they'll probably wouldn't book them, right? Because they want to have a guarantee that they know they're going to get 1,000 people into their festival. So then they'll come to us to support that more emerging talent and get them on the stages and get them those audiences. So that's fine. So it really does depend. So I would drop us a line specifically, because I don't know how you're set up, or if you're set up right now, to see whether that is something that is appropriate right now.
Yeah, and I think last year or the year before last, we did a webinar about organisations and organisational funding. So it might be worth us doing another one this year for the 2 deadlines we have. Okay, great. Next question from Dylan. If a group of more established musicians who would meet the criteria are starting a relatively new project and don't necessarily meet the criteria, could they still get funding? I'm guessing you mean they're established musicians, but the collective or project they're doing is a new one.
I wouldn't, well, it's new. You are eligible for funding. It's just that I don't think you should come in for Accelerator, because this is about this particular project, and actually you don't have any track record or evidence of how this particular project's going to do. Like, you may be incredible musicians, like, I'm not, no shade on that, like, and it might be that you do folk at the moment and you want to do some kind of like electronic thing. Well, that's a completely different remit. The audience is different, the industry is different. So I think if you haven't been doing this project for at least 18 months and can show how it's developing, then no, not for Accelerator. Well, actually not for Accelerator, because you wouldn't have had that kind of, you wouldn't have toured, you wouldn't have had the press, you wouldn't have hit any of the criteria. So if you don't hit the criteria, don't apply. I would probably look at Open Fund and do this for 18 months, see how you're getting on, come into Open Fund first, unless, of course, you accelerate up to Accelerator in the meantime.
Yeah, and I think depending on where they're based or what type of music it is, there are other funds that we have, so Beyond Borders or New Music Biennial, etc. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on stuff that we've got coming up. Another question from Howling B: would a professional live session video or music video to promote themselves be eligible?
Only in the context of us also supporting your recording, the recording or the creation of the music and or performance. So not on its own, no.
Cool.
It has to form a bigger campaign.
Yeah, hopefully that answers Madatronic's question as well. It's quite similar. If not, do let us know. Lots. So I'm looking to work with a particular studio in Scotland. Would this affect my chances of getting this fund, the fact that the studio isn't in Wales?
No, and like I said before, it's not necessarily just about that. As long as you're based in Wales, I think the tricky thing is where you have half your band outside of Wales and half of it in Wales. That's a bit tricky, and a lot of the activity will be funneling out of Wales. I think that's the thing, right? As long as you could say why you're going to, it might be that it's a particular, you might be working in a particular like traditional genre or whatever it is that means you go there, and therefore the quality of your record within that genre is going to be much better, and therefore it gives a higher profile to you as a Wales-based artist, right? That's fine, but I think there's just nuances in it. So I would just be explaining why that studio, like what studio it is first, why you're working at, why you want to go to that studio, what will it mean for your career, and if you couldn't go there, like think of what the difference is between you not going there and going there, and what that will mean for you.
Perfect. Question from Glenby. I recently recorded an album's worth of material at a studio in Wales. It is self-funded. Could I apply for funding to pay for the mixing as part of the process? Would not be as part of the process would not be retrospective. So I'm guessing you're saying mixing would be after the You
could apply for that, and that is an eligible thing you can apply for. It does count as creation because it's the mix and master. It is, and I'm assuming you're based in Wales, but from what you're saying, and it doesn't matter if you recorded it in Wales, particularly, it's more about where you're based as the creator. But I would say it just needs to make sense, right? I think advisors tend to want, we look more favorably on supporting more of the recording and creation process versus, not saying there isn't any brilliant kind of creative and technical work that goes into the mix and the master, because there is. But what does it particularly mean for you to have it mixed and mastered by this particular person? Why? What's the reason? What will that do for the record? What will that do for your sound? What will that do for your career? And always why? To think why. So you can come in, yes, it's a short answer, but really explain why it's for this particular part of it.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to think about is the why, because I think it really helps you articulate for the advisors when they're looking at it.
Yeah, and be very clear that it's not for the recording that's already taken, as in the recording's already taken place, but this is now for the mix and master that hasn't taken place yet.
Yeah. Question from Eddie. So I think Eddie, I think you might have touched upon this earlier when we were talking about tours. So it might be worth just summarising this again, but we're looking for funding for live show development and show costs, so rehearsal, paying musicians, petrol, van, engineer. How does this work if you don't have a specific tour with a project start or end date yet?
You need to have a start and end date. Choose a time, pick a time in the year. When do you want to do it? And work your project plans around that. We're not going to give you money for an idea that you might do something in 6 months' time, because we have to evaluate it, we have to check it. So when is feasible for you to do it? When is it feasible? Have you already contacted promoters and venues? When do they have gaps in their scheduling? Have you already thought about how much it's going to cost you? When your musicians are available? So a short answer, if you have all our funding is project funding, so it has to have a start date and an end date. So you need to have that in place. Even if it's unconfirmed at this point, it's the idea that you're going to do an autumn tour and you're going to do 5 dates in these venues, that's fine, you know, and you're already in conversations with people about it, but you need to have an idea in your mind of when that will be.
Right, I think we've got to our last question here. So it's basically a clarification from Madtronic. It's basically they're asking if they were to put on a live performance with an audience and it was filmed, does that count where a live video in a studio wouldn't? So I'm guessing, yeah, what's the difference between a studio recording and a live performance?
Yeah, well, it does, but we don't. So the thing is, we don't tend to like to fund one-off performances. So if it's part of a tour, that's fine, I think. And I feel like we've come back in different ways. It sounds like whoever keeps asking, I don't know if it's the same person asking the same question, you basically want to get a live video, which is fine, but it needs to be within the context of something bigger. It can't just be, I'm going to do, you know, I don't know, maybe you're going to do it in, there's an amazing church in Wrexham, you're going to do in there. Yeah, fine, that's lovely. But it would need to be as part of a wider tour, not solely on its own.
Great. And I think that's all the questions. So we're bang on schedule. So I just want to thank everyone for participating, and we will leave this video up as well so people can come back and read it again. All the guidance is on prsfoundation.com. Just navigate your way to the PPL Momentum Accelerator page. There is guidance also in Welsh, but if you have any questions at all, do get in touch. info@prsfoundation.com. No worries, Madtronic, all happy, good. Yeah, so if you do have any issues, just let us know and we will get back to you. But thanks again, and thanks, Becky.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good luck with your applications. I can't wait.